there's a huge interest right now in games and learning. And I think at one level, there's a misperception that the goal is to make learning fun. I actually don't think learning should be fun. I think learning should be engaging and learning should be challenging. And it turns out that the best games are games that are extremely challenging and where the people that are engaged in the game, if you stop them at the moment and said, are you having a good time? They might not say yes. They might say, this is really hard. I'm really struggling. But if you ask them, do you want to keep going? They would say, oh, absolutely, get out of my way. And that's what the best games do, is they create a sense of conflict, of struggle, of striving toward a goal. And education, when done really well, does that as well. So for a number of years at Michigan, I've taught an undergraduate course called Video Games and Learning. And the purpose of the class was to be one of the first undergraduate courses offered in the School of Education that wasn't intended necessarily for people who were headed toward becoming teachers. So it was a non-certification course, and it was meant to expose people to the ways we think about teaching and learning in education. It had this very attractive element, which was video games. So it drew students from across campus, about 80 students in the course, a moderately sized course, not a huge course, but not a small class either. And it was a stealth course. It was really about cognition, about learning, about teaching, about school design, all through the lens of thinking about video games. And I taught the class for a year or so, and then a student came up to me and said, you know, Professor, it might be interesting if you actually tried to teach this class like a game. And I thought, that's very reasonable. I should think about what that means. So the following semester, when I taught the class, I thought very hard about how to do that. What would it look like if this class were designed like a game? And what we quickly realized was that it was extremely hard to manage. We used a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of different ways of displaying where different students were at different points in time. The students, it turned out, never had any idea what was going on in terms of their own standing in the class, which had the opposite effect I was going for. I was trying to give students more control over their pathway through the class. It ended up giving them, in some ways, less control because they had very little information. So one of the teaching assistants in the class came up to me and said, you know, I think we could probably build some tools that would help with this. So we set about doing that. And Caitlin Holman was the teaching assistant who was the lead inspiration for this tool, constructed for us a set of very rudimentary tools that were extremely functional called the grade predictor that made it possible for students to see where they were and track what they were doing. And the reaction from the students was off the charts positive. So we started thinking, what are other elements that would make this approach to teaching a little bit easier? Fundamentally, a change in teaching is about a change in your beliefs about what it means for someone to learn and what you should do as a teacher in reaction to how you think people learn. Almost never can you bring in a piece of technology that's going to change the way you teach. So this kind of transformation that I'm going for in my classroom is not really about GradeCraft, but it wouldn't be possible without GradeCraft. So as the tool has grown up, what we found is it's made it possible for me to do more ambitious things because the system takes care of managing some of the complexity in the background. The best ideas, the best products come from making a risky move sometimes, not doing the safe thing. And that's, I think, a challenge for higher education, is to find ways to entice our students to make them feel safe enough that they can do risky things in order to get to the next level, to do things that truly are going to be world-changing and not just the next safe thing to do to get to the next level.